In this video, I'm going to be talking about the Linux file system and just explain various things about it. In this video, I'll be using Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6. Obviously, there's lots of different distributions like Kali Linux, Linux Mint, Ubuntu, and whatnot, which all have their own purposes and reasons to why you'd use them. But Red Hat Enterprise Linux 6 I'm the most familiar with and I'll probably use the most. To explain and begin, I'll show all the directories here with the ls command. So you can either do this to the CLI or the GUI. I'll just do it to the GUI. So I do an ls here. These are all the files in this directory that I'm in, the desktop directory. And ls is basically kind of one of the most commonly used commands. It's probably the first command you will learn in Linux. So if I just go to a different directory here, and I ls this, we can see all these directories here. And with the ls command, if I do man ls, just to note, the man command is kind of like a guide, like a manual. So if you do man followed by the command, you'll kind of get a manual page with all the information and the switches you can use for the command. And switches are kind of like variations of the command. So we can see ls -l will do a long listing format. So if we go ahead and do that, we can see here that it kind of does the same command, but it alters it a little bit by giving us a different listing. So here we have permissions, file size, the dates that it was created or modified and whatnot, and just more information. So that's very helpful. And honestly, there's so many different switches and options for each command. But now I'll be moving on to kind of going into detail about each directory and kind of what it does. So first thing I'll probably do here is ls, the slash. So essentially this is the top of the file system. I would compare this to like the C drive in Windows, for example. It contains all the files. Another really useful and important command, probably up there with ls, is cd, which stands for change directory. This is what you use to navigate the file system. So we can see here we have the boot directory. This is pretty self-explanatory. It just contains files for starting the system. So if we do cd/boot, now I'm in the boot directory. If I do an ls, we can see what files it contains. Now, normally a regular user wouldn't have access to this, but we're the root user, which is kind of like the administrator. But yeah, this is what all the where all the boot files are, and you don't really want to mess with this. So moving on, if we just ls this top level directory here, we see a lot of other files. For example, we have /dev, which is device files. Like if you plugged in like some sort of device, like I don't know, like a webcam, you know, some files might be created here. We have /etc for etc kind of. This kind of contains a lot of different files. Like any type of configuration files would be here. Like later on when you get really experienced with Linux, you work in this directory a lot to change like configuration files and whatnot. /home, that's kind of like a quick kind of like it contains all your users or all the directories at least. So if we ls/home, we can see we have all these users here. And like let's say if we go inside of /home/Einstein, we can see now we're in we have access to their desktop. So this just has all the personal directories and files. Usually, you know, if you're a regular user, you can only probably go in yours. But obviously, I'm kind of like the root user or the administrator. Another useful command is when navigating file system is if you just do cd, it'll take you back to your home directory. But let's say if I just wanted to go back once, I could do cd dot dot, which just takes me back to slash home. But cd would just take me back all the way to my home directory. In this case, it's just slash root. So there are kind of a lot of ways to navigate the file system. You can do it however way you want. Obviously, there's many ways that are quicker than others. But moving on, I'll kind of just go over key directories here. We have slash mnt, which is kind of for mounting devices. Media, if you have like a USB or something, it'll probably show up here. Slash root is the home directory of the root user. It's separate from slash home because it's important to separate that, as the root user is important. You don't want to mess with those files. And yeah, we have many other directories like tmp, which has temporary files. Var, like variables. That also you might do a lot of configurations with, along with etc. or etc. And then slash bin, I didn't talk about bin either, but bin kind of contains like essential user command binaries, right? The bin stands for binaries. So even ls is contained here, and a bunch of other commands. And going forward, another useful or command to know is cat, C-A-T, like the animal. It's similar to ls, but ls is kind of more like listing a directory. Like if I do ls boot, right, it's gonna list the directory. But cat is to kind of view like the file. So if I do cat slash boot slash this config file here, it basically lists and reads all the contents of the file and gives out an output so I can see it. If I did the same command with ls, it doesn't list the actual contents, it just lists kind of like the directory. So cat and ls are kind of different, you want to keep that in mind. And then as well as adding and deleting to the file system, like files and whatnot, you can use the touch command. So we'll do man touch. This is one way to create a file. So if I do touch file 1, right? So now if we do an ls, we can see there's a file 1 here. And then if we go into gedit, which is one of the text editors, there's many different ones, put some data in here, save it, close it, and then cat file 1. We now get the output. To remove it, we do rm for remove. Thing about Linux is it's kind of really, all these words are kind of shortcuts, and once you really know how to use it, it's kind of easy to work with. I found it challenging a bit at the beginning. But here, yeah, so we're going to remove file 1, type in yes to confirm. Now ls, it's gone. Another one is mkdir, make directory. Now if we ls, we see we have a directory here called file, and we can go into it. So cd slash file, cd file. So now we're in the file directory. So now we can remove it with rmdir. So we have make and remove directory. So now we're gonna remove it, and as you can see here, it's gone. Another thing you might notice is, which I'll show here, you might notice that, you might have noticed that there's color codings for a lot of these files, and that basically just signifies like the type of file essentially. So, I can tell you, for example, green is an executable, black is kind of just like a plain file, red is an archive file. So it's basically just color coding that kind of tells you what the file is. So you can see all these directories here, like desktop, documents, downloads, music, pictures. They're all this color compared to the ones that are just regular files, which are black. Uh, so that's another key thing in the file system to keep note of. But yeah, overall I think I'm done with this video just about the Linux file system. I think the best way to just learn it is just by practice. It just kind of becomes second hand, sorry. Um, just like listing the directories and everything. And another helpful thing is, like let's say if you do slash, or you want to cd into slash boot, oh, sorry, and you don't kind of know what files to put next, you can just use tab completion to kind of list it, or complete the rest of the file for you, kind of like autocomplete, I guess. That's another helpful thing. Um, but yeah, the kind of key commands is cd, ls, and a few others I showed, like making a directory, or like gedit to edit a text file. You'll need this one or any of the text editors, because there's a few different text editors. Like Nano is another one. Um, they're all kind of different in their own way. Gedit's probably the most user-friendly one for someone new, just because it's kind of like a regular Windows text editor. The other ones have their own controls and stuff. It's a bit annoying to use. Like if we see this HTTPD config I have here, you would probably have to edit some of these if you're doing anything in Linux, just editing files. And so yeah, you'd have to use these text editors. There's also VI, which I'm showing here. So there's many different types. The thing I like about Linux is, because obviously I'm just talking about the file system here and just giving kind of like a brief explanation. The thing is that Linux can start off really simple, but you can take it to so many different levels and use it to create so many different things. And I mean, some distributions like this one, for example, have the GUI, which is nice and all. It's just I think it's really important to learn it through the command line. Um, and honestly, I kind of prefer it that way after so much practice. Um, but yeah, I think I covered most of the simple basics of the file system. I would just kind of spend time practicing, going through it, and then you kind of get used to everything, and it becomes second hand. So yeah, that's everything for this video. Thank you for watching.